Beneath the dazzling lights and silver screens of Hollywood's golden age, a darker reality thrived, one filled with secrets, scandals, and corruption. While the public idolized these stars, behind closed doors, many were entangled in controversy. From shocking crimes and hidden affairs to cover-ups orchestrated by powerful studios, the industry's biggest names lived lives far more dramatic than the movies they starred in. Imagine a beloved comedian accused of a crime so scandalous that it ruined his career overnight, or a swashbuckling hero facing trial for disturbing accusations. What about the charming leading man whispered to have been involved in a deadly accident, protected only by Hollywood's influence? These aren't just rumors, they're the real, shocking stories of some of the most famous actors of the era. For decades, Hollywood functioned as a machine that built up stars, only to discard them when their secrets became too big to hide. Studios control the narrative, covering up crimes, silencing victims, and ensuring that the public only saw the carefully crafted image of their favorite celebrities. But now we're pulling back the curtain on 20 of the most corrupt actors from the golden age of Hollywood. Let's dive into the scandals they tried to erase from history. Charlie Chaplin was one of the most beloved figures in cinematic history, a genius of silent comedy whose tramp character won the hearts of audiences worldwide. But behind the laughter, Chaplin's personal life was riddled with scandal, particularly his troubling relationships with underage girls. Chaplin had a pattern of pursuing much younger women, often teenage girls, and it eventually landed him in legal trouble. In 1943, actress Joan Barry accused Chaplin of fathering her child, leading to a high-profile paternity lawsuit. Though blood tests suggested he wasn't the father, the court ruled against him due to outdated laws, forcing him to pay child support. The scandal rocked his reputation, and the U.S. government soon turned on him as well. Amid growing political tensions and accusations of being a communist sympathizer, Chaplin was effectively exiled for Hollywood in 1952. The very country that once worshipped him now saw him as a disgrace. Though he later returned to America to accept an honorary Oscar, Chaplin's off-screen legacy remains complicated. His talent revolutionized film, but his controversial personal life revealed a much darker side to the man behind the comedy, proving that even legends aren't immune to scandal. Montgomery Clift, once hailed as one of Hollywood's most talented actors, had a career that was tragically cut short due to addiction, personal struggles, and a devastating car accident. Known for his sensitive and intense performances in films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity, Clift was a rising star in the 1950s. However, his life took a dramatic turn in 1956 when he was involved in a severe car crash. The crash left Clift with serious facial injuries, including a disfigured jaw and nose. Despite the extent of the damage, Hollywood, concerned with his marketability, attempted to cover up the incident and rushed him back into production. His appearance had changed drastically, but the studios pushed him to continue working, leading to more personal and emotional turmoil. Struggling with severe depression and a growing addiction to alcohol and painkillers, Clift's career suffered. The once promising actor became unreliable on set, and his personal life spiraled out of control. Despite his extraordinary talent, Hollywood's refusal to address his mental health and addiction issues ultimately led to his premature death in 1966, at the age of 45. Clift's tragic decline highlights the darker side of Hollywood's treatment of its stars and their struggles with addiction and mental health. John Wayne, known as the quintessential American hero for his roles in films like The Searchers and True Grit, was also a deeply controversial figure due to his political views. A staunch conservative, Wayne was an outspoken supporter of McCarthyism during the 1950s, aligning himself with the anti-communist witch hunts that swept through Hollywood and the U.S. Wayne's political activism didn't stop there. He publicly voiced his support for the Vietnam War and made numerous statements that were widely considered racist, particularly toward Native Americans and African Americans. In one infamous interview, he made disparaging remarks about indigenous peoples and expressed disdain for what he perceived as the liberal agenda. These views stood in stark contrast to the heroic roles he played on screen, where he portrayed morally upstanding characters. As time went on, Wayne's legacy became increasingly tarnished by these controversial opinions. His political views and statements on race were often seen as out of touch with evolving societal values. Though his contributions to film are undeniable, his political affiliations and views have cast a shadow over his reputation in later years, making him a complex and divisive figure in American culture. Humphrey Bogart, known for his iconic roles in films like Casablanca and The Big Sleep, built a career as the ultimate tough guy character, but behind the camera, his real-life behavior was far from charming. Despite his on-screen stoicism, Bogart's personal life was marked by a turbulent temper and a penchant for heavy drinking. The actor's alcohol consumption was well documented, often leading to erratic behavior that made him difficult to work with on set. His drunken outbursts and volatile mood swings caused tension with co-stars and directors alike, creating a reputation as a troublemaker. Bogart's unpredictable actions made it hard for people to rely on him, and the studios found it increasingly difficult to handle his erratic behavior. Though his personal struggles with alcohol and temper were often overlooked due to his stardom, they were a significant part of his life. Despite his talent, Bogart's off-screen troubles became a burden, affecting both his career and personal relationships. His volatile nature contrasted sharply with the calm and collected persona he portrayed on screen. Nevertheless, Bogart's legacy as a Hollywood legend endures, but his struggles with alcohol and his difficult temperament remain part of the darker side of his storied career. Errol Flynn was the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob, known for his daring roles in the adventures of Robin Hood and Captain Blood. But behind the charming smile and swashbuckling heroics, Flynn had a dark side that led to one of Hollywood's most infamous trials. In 1943, Flynn was accused of inappropriate relations with two underage girls, Betty Hansen and Peggy Satterley. The trial became a media circus, with newspapers sensationalizing every detail. Flynn's reputation as a womanizer was well known, but this time, he faced serious legal consequences. His lawyers painted the accusers as opportunists, and after weeks of testimony, the jury acquitted him. Despite walking free, Flynn's image was forever changed. The phrase, "in like Flynn," became slang for his alleged exploits, and the trial only fueled his reckless, party-loving persona. He continued to drink heavily, chase women, and live a life of excess, but Hollywood's golden boy was now permanently stained by scandal. Flynn's career continued, but he never fully escaped the whispers about his past. By the time of his early death at 50, his legacy was a mix of on-screen brilliance and off-screen controversy, proving that not all heroes are noble in real life. Marlon Brando was one of the most iconic and influential actors in Hollywood, known for his powerful performances in A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather. While his career reached legendary status, his personal life was marked by controversy, particularly concerning his relationship with his children. Brando fathered at least 11 children, but his parenting was far from ideal. He was often distant and neglectful, leaving his children to be raised by others. His relationships with his kids were complicated, with many reporting emotional neglect and a lack of involvement in their lives. Brando's erratic behavior and focus on his career often overshadowed his responsibilities as a father. In one of the most tragic chapters of his life, his son, Christian Brando, was convicted of manslaughter after he killed his sister's abusive boyfriend in a fit of rage. The incident brought unwanted attention to Brando's dysfunctional family life. While Brando was deeply affected by the scandal, it highlighted the deep fractures within his family. Despite his immense talent and success, Brando's personal life was a chaotic and painful mess. His inability to maintain relationships with his children remains one of the darker aspects of his complex legacy. Peter Lorre, the iconic actor known for his portrayal of sinister characters in films like M and the Maltese Falcon, was more than just a master of villainous roles. His personal life was marked by a long battle with addiction. Lorre's struggles with painkillers and opioid dependency were well known in Hollywood, and they greatly affected both his career and personal life. Lorre had suffered from chronic health problems for much of his life, which led to his reliance on prescription painkillers. His addiction worsened over time, making him increasingly unreliable on set. The physical and emotional toll of the drugs took a noticeable toll on his performances, and his career began to falter as the industry began to demand more stability from its stars. Despite his immense talent, Lorre's addiction showed how Hollywood's brutal pace often neglected the well-being of its actors. While the industry focused on the entertainment output, little was done to help struggling stars like Lorre, who was left to battle his demons in the spotlight. Lorre's life ended tragically in 1964 at the age of 59, with his health ultimately succumbing to years of addiction and misuse. His story serves as a haunting reminder of Hollywood's failure to care for its own during its golden age. Buster Keaton was one of the most brilliant silent film comedians of all time, known for his physical humor and impeccable timing. His performances in classics like The General and Sherlock Jr. made him a beloved figure in Hollywood. However, behind the scenes, Keaton's life was far less glamorous, marked by struggles with alcohol and a loss of creative control. In the early stages of his career, Keaton was one of the most innovative directors in silent film, creating his own films and pushing boundaries in cinema. However, after signing a contract with MGM in the late 1920s, his creative freedom was stripped away. The studio dictated his film's direction, forcing him into a rigid system that stifled his artistic expression. As Keaton's career began to crumble under the pressures of the studio system, he turned to alcohol to cope with the growing stress. His dependency on alcohol worsened, and his personal life spiraled. Despite his early success, Keaton's career faltered as he struggled with addiction and a lack of creative freedom. His story reflects the brutal treatment of many stars in Hollywood's golden age, where even the most talented were often crushed by the pressures of fame, addiction, and studio control. Spencer Tracy was one of Hollywood's most revered actors, known for his strong, reliable presence and roles in films like Captain's Courageous and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. On screen, he embodied the ideal leading man, stoic, dependable, and every bit the moral hero. However, his personal life was far from the polished image he projected. Behind the scenes, Tracy struggled with a lifelong battle with alcoholism, a condition that took a toll on his health and his career. He often showed up to set drunk, and his erratic behavior became a known issue within Hollywood. Despite his problems, his performances remained critically acclaimed, and he was able to keep his personal struggles largely out of the public eye. Additionally, Tracy secretly carried on an extramarital affair with his co-star Katharine Hepburn. Though they had a deep and lifelong bond, Tracy never divorced his wife Louise and kept the relationship with Hepburn hidden for years. Their love was one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets, but the couple never publicly acknowledged it. Tracy's personal battles, especially his addiction, were largely hidden behind his on-screen persona. His double life as a family man and a troubled alcoholic remains one of Hollywood's most complicated legacies. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of the biggest silent film stars of the early 20th century, known for his comedic genius and larger-than-life personality. But in 1921, his career came crashing down when he was accused of a crime so shocking that it shook Hollywood to its core. Arbuckle was at a party at San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel when actress Virginia Rappe fell gravely ill. She died a few days later, and rumors quickly spread that Arbuckle was responsible. He was charged with manslaughter, with prosecutors claiming he had assaulted Rappe in a way that led to her fatal injuries. The press had a field day, painting Arbuckle as a monster and sensationalizing every detail of the case. After 3 trials, Arbuckle was acquitted, and the jury even issued a public apology, declaring his innocence. But the damage was done. Hollywood studios blacklisted him, theaters refused to show his films, and his reputation was permanently ruined. Though he tried to make a comeback, he never regained his former status. His story became one of the first major Hollywood scandals, proving that fame and fortune could disappear in an instant when the public turned against a star. Lana Turner, one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars, found her life thrust into a scandal that no one could have predicted. In 1958, her abusive boyfriend, gangster Johnny Stompanato, was found stabbed to death in Turner's home. The shocking part? It was alleged that the person who killed him was Turner's own daughter, Cheryl Crane. Stompanato had a violent history, frequently abusing Turner, and on that fateful night, an argument turned deadly. While Turner was said to be in the room at the time of the murder, it was her 14-year-old daughter who was reported to have intervened in the heated confrontation and stabbed Stompanato in an act of self-defense. The trial that followed was a media frenzy, with reporters and photographers swarming the courtroom. Turner, however, managed to maintain her composure, and the court ultimately ruled that Cheryl had acted in self-defense, sparing her from any criminal charges. Despite the media circus surrounding the case, Turner's career wasn't significantly harmed. She remained a major star in Hollywood, and the incident, though tragic, didn't seem to tarnish her carefully crafted image. Lana Turner walked away from the scandal largely unscathed, proving once again how powerful Hollywood stars could be, even in the face of scandal. Marilyn Monroe is remembered as one of Hollywood's greatest icons, but behind her radiant public image lay a life marred by exploitation and control. From the beginning of her career, Monroe was manipulated by the powerful men in Hollywood. Her image was crafted by the studios, who dictated every aspect of her life, her appearance, her behavior, and even her relationships. She was often seen as a glamorous blonde bombshell, a role she came to resent as she struggled to break free from the constraints placed on her. Monroe's personal life was just as troubled. She battled mental health issues, and her relationships with men were often abusive or controlling. Her dependency on prescription drugs and alcohol only added to her struggles, which were exacerbated by the constant pressure of maintaining her star persona. In 1962, Monroe was found dead in her home from an apparent overdose. While her death was ruled as a probable suicide, the circumstances surrounding it have sparked endless speculation. Some believe it was an accident, while others suggest foul play, possibly involving her connections to powerful figures in both Hollywood and politics. Monroe's death remains one of the greatest mysteries of Hollywood, overshadowing the tragic life of an enduring legend. Robert Mitchum, one of Hollywood's toughest leading men, was the epitome of rugged masculinity in films like Out of the Past and The Night of the Hunter. But in 1948, his image was nearly destroyed by a scandal that could have derailed his career for good. Mitchum was arrested for marijuana possession after a raid at his home, and the press had a field day with the story. The arrest seemed to confirm the public's fears about the destructive lifestyles of Hollywood stars. At the time, drug use was highly stigmatized, and Mitchum's career appeared to be in jeopardy. However, Hollywood's powerful studio system was quick to protect its stars. Mitchum was able to secure a quick release, and within months, his career was back on track. The scandal didn't destroy him. Rather, it seemed to enhance his tough guy image, and he continued to land major roles. While his arrest was a momentary blip in his career, it revealed how Hollywood's elite could manipulate public opinion and erase mistakes when necessary. Mitchum's success after the scandal demonstrated how, in the golden age of Hollywood, a bit of rehabilitation and the right connections could erase almost any mistake. Frank Sinatra, the legendary crooner and actor, was one of the most influential figures in Hollywood, but his career was marred by connections to the mafia. Though never directly charged with any criminal activity, Sinatra's ties to organized crime were an open secret in the entertainment industry. Sinatra's rise to fame in the 1940s and 1950s coincided with rumors that powerful mafia figures helped him secure major opportunities in both music and film. It's widely believed that his friendship with infamous mobsters, including the Rat Pack's ties to figures like Lucky Luciano and the Chicago Outfit, played a key role in his success. Sinatra's association with the mafia extended beyond business deals. His personal relationships with mobsters often crossed into the realm of intimidation and manipulation. In fact, there are multiple accounts suggesting that Sinatra uses connections to help others in the industry and maintain his own power. Despite these ties, Sinatra's public persona remained largely untarnished for most of his career. However, his mafia connections became more apparent as the years went on, and the whispers about his shady dealings persisted. Though he denied any criminal involvement, Sinatra's ties to organized crime remained one of the most intriguing aspects of his storied life. Thelma Todd was a rising star in 1930s Hollywood, known for her beauty and comedic talent. She had the world at her feet, with a successful career in films and a promising future ahead. But in December 1935, Todd's life was tragically cut short under mysterious circumstances. She was found dead in her car, parked outside her restaurant, with signs that suggested she had been asphyxiated. The cause of death was ruled as carbon monoxide poisoning, but questions quickly arose. Was it suicide, or was there foul play involved? Rumors swirled that Todd had been murdered by the mob, with some suggesting that her involvement with a gangster linked to her restaurant may have led to her untimely death. Others speculated that she had been a victim of a love triangle gone wrong. Despite several investigations and the efforts of the police, no one was ever charged, and the case remains unsolved. Todd's mysterious death only added to the dark side of Hollywood's golden age, where the pressures of fame, potential criminal connections, and untold secrets often ended in tragedy. Today, Thelma Todd's death remains one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in Hollywood history. Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde bombshell of Hollywood's golden age, was at the height of her fame when tragedy struck her personal life. In 1932, her second husband, Paul Byrne, was found dead in their home from a gunshot wound. The circumstances surrounding his death were shrouded in mystery, with some speculating that it was a suicide while others believed foul play was involved. Paul Byrne, an MGM executive, had been struggling with personal issues and rumors about his marriage to Harlow, with some sources claiming he was emotionally troubled by his inability to consummate the marriage due to a physical condition. His sudden death sparked widespread media attention and gossip, with some pointing fingers at Harlow herself, suggesting she might have known more than she admitted. The scandal only intensified when the official ruling declared Byrne's death a suicide, though many questions remained unanswered. Some conspiracy theories suggested that Harlow might have been involved in his death, or that the studio tried to cover up details to protect her career. Despite the controversy, Harlow's career continued to flourish until her untimely death in 1937, but the mystery of Paul Byrne's death lingered in Hollywood's dark history. Judy Garland was the beloved star of The Wizard of Oz, with a voice that enchanted millions. But behind the magic, she was a victim of Hollywood's ruthless system, one that controlled, exploited, and ultimately destroyed her. As a child star under MGM, Garland was subjected to brutal treatment. Studio executives forced her onto a grueling schedule, limiting her food intake to keep her thin and giving her amphetamines to maintain energy. When she couldn't sleep, they gave her barbiturates. This cycle of uppers and downers left her physically and mentally drained, but the studio saw her as a product, not a person. By adulthood, Garland was completely dependent on drugs. Though she remained a powerhouse performer, her addictions led to erratic behavior, financial troubles, and failed relationships. Hollywood had made her a star, but it had also trapped her in a system that valued profit over well-being. Garland's struggles ended tragically in 1969, when she died of an overdose at just 47. Her death was a sobering reminder of how Hollywood treated its biggest stars, pushing them to the brink and discarding them when they could no longer perform. She was a legend, but also a cautionary tale. W.C. Fields, one of the most iconic comedians of his time, was known for his sharp wit, his love of liquor, and his blatant disdain for children, making him one of Hollywood's most difficult and unconventional stars. His on-screen persona as a grumpy, misanthropic character reflected his real-life attitude, but was his behavior off-screen that truly set him apart. Fields had a notorious reputation for being difficult to work with, particularly due to his alcoholism. His drinking habit often caused tension on set, with many co-stars and directors complaining about his unpredictable behavior. He was known to be irritable, insulting, and difficult in his personal interactions, which led to him being regarded as an outcast in Hollywood. His refusal to conform to the expectations of a studio system star made him a problematic figure, despite his undeniable comedic talent. Another striking aspect of Fields' persona was his open disdain for children, which became a trademark of his public image. He often mocked the idea of fatherhood and famously declared, "I like children, properly cooked." Despite these eccentricities, Fields' influence on comedy remained significant. His unique, rebellious personality, though difficult, contributed to his lasting legacy as a beloved yet controversial figure in Hollywood. Joan Crawford was one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars, known for her commanding screen presence and icy elegance. But behind the scenes, her personal life was anything but glamorous. Decades after her reign in Hollywood, her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, shattered her legacy with explosive memoir Mommy Dearest. In the book, Christina accused Crawford of being a cruel and abusive mother, detailing horrific punishments, unpredictable rage, and obsessive control. She claimed that Crawford would beat her with wire hangers, deprive her of food, and wake her in the middle of the night for bizarre punishments. The most infamous scene, immortalized in the film adaptation, depicts Crawford screaming, "No wire hangers," while violently attacking Christina. Crawford's public image had always been that of a strong, independent woman who had risen from poverty to Hollywood royalty. But after Mommy Dearest, many saw her in a different light, as controlling, abusive tyrant behind closed doors. While some of her supporters dismissed Christina's claims as exaggerated or fabricated, the book changed Crawford's legacy forever. Whether or not the stories were entirely true, the image of Joan Crawford as the ultimate Hollywood villain became a permanent part of pop culture history. Clark Gable was Hollywood's ultimate leading man, famous for his rugged charm and iconic role in Gone with the Wind. But behind the silver screen, a dark rumor followed him for decades, one involving a fatal hit-and-run accident that may have been covered up by powerful studio executives. The alleged incident took place in the 1930s, when Gable was rumored to have struck and killed a pedestrian while driving intoxicated. According to whispers in Hollywood, MGM, the studio that made Gable a star, went to great lengths to protect him. Some say the studio paid off police and witnesses, while others claim a low-level studio employee took the blame for the accident in exchange for a large sum of money. Despite no official charges being filed, the story never truly went away. Those close to Gable noted his deep guilt and occasional comments hinting at an unspoken regret. Whether fact or fiction, the allegation remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Gable's career thrived, and he remained a beloved icon, but his alleged involvement in hidden crime suggests that, in the golden age of Hollywood, the right connections could bury even the darkest secrets. And that's it for the shocking stories of Hollywood's golden age stars. Behind the glitz and glamour, these icons faced scandals, addictions, and struggles that shaped their lives. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden tales from Hollywood's past. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.